Titans have been locked into the same old consecration spam setups for what feels like forever, but not anymore. We finally have something different, and it's shaking things up. Since Revenant dropped, I've been grinding every day, and this Stasis Titan build blows everything else out of the water, and I'm not the only one who's noticed. So today, I want to clear up some misconceptions that people have. I'm going to break down the standard setup for you, and then cover more nuanced variations for specific activities. Lastly, I want to let you know about some awesome weapons coming out between next week and the end of the year that will synergize amazingly well with this Stasis setup. Syntheseps plus Consecration Spam has been the only build capable of tackling endgame since the release of Beyond Light. Actually, I take that back. Stronghold has been secretly strong for a while now, but no one likes to acknowledge it for some reason. Titan players are looking for something new and exciting. That's where Icefall Mantle comes in. We now have high durability thanks to its Frost Armor ability. Each stack of Frost Armor provides 4.5% damage reduction, maxing out at 5 stacks for a total of 22.5% DR. Plus, Frost Armor stacks now heal for a small portion of our health. We also have great area control thanks to our ice abilities, such as Ice Lances, Freeze Grenades, Stasis Crystal Generation, Stasis Weapon Damage, and Glacial Quake. On top of that, regen for melee and class ability energy is off the charts. But has it become the new king of Titan builds? I find that a lot of Icefall Mantle videos are misrepresenting its true strength. Not just that, a lot of players seem confused about some build aspects and are asking questions in the comments section. So let's clear that up now. A lot of people are saying this build handles endgame content. However, nobody is showing off Master Lost Sectors. We all know Glacial Quake is phenomenal versus large size bosses, but no one is showing single target damage for normal size bosses. And I haven't even seen anyone take on Master Nightfalls, since GMs haven't been released yet. Instead, their main point of reference is always Onslaught Salvation, a mode where most builds will do fine, especially since you're in a fire team setting, where Orbs of Power, team healing, ammo generation, and near infinite revives are part of the activity. On top of that, I'm not really seeing videos where they're explaining how to use a weapon loadout that will at least take care of 2 out of the 3 champion types. Perhaps they're expecting you to know that you should save your abilities to become Radiant versus Barriers, or use your slows versus Unstoppables, and remember to use Weaken and Jolt versus Overloads. Either way, I think it would be a more genuine build guide if they had added a section specifically for fighting champions. Solo players will watch these other guides and get the impression that they can tackle Master Plus content with these, but that's simply not the case. As time goes on, we'll be able to brute force through harder content by the fact that we'll have a higher light level. But in order to complete those activities now, we have to tweak our build from what everyone else has put together. Besides that, players are also confused about a couple of interactions, mainly the cooldown of Icefall Mantle and how Crystalline Converter works. First off, your choice for class ability does not matter. The Stasis Burst from Icefall Mantle has a constant cooldown of 43 seconds, but it can be lowered to about 25 seconds with Facet of Hope, as long as you have an elemental buff such as Frost Armor or Void Overshield. Also, at least from my testing, Crystalline Converter does not stack properly. Either it doesn't work at all in some instances, or it is used up when throwing or slamming Ice Lances, so you never get a chance to build it up fully and use it with your melee ability. Alright, now that we know what this build can do and we've cleared up some misconceptions, let's go through the nuts and bolts of this thing. Focusing on exotics first, Icefall Mantle reads as follows. While you have a Stasis super equipped, Rapid Stasis Final Blows grant Frost Armor. You heal a small amount whenever you gain Frost Armor. Replaces your class ability with a burst of Stasis energy that freezes nearby combatants, slows nearby opponents, and grants you increased Frost Armor. For your exotic weapon, most people are leaning towards Allothinum. On its own, it seems more of a support weapon. Creating special and heavy ammo throughout an activity is mostly a quality of life perk. Even with the ability to stun overload champions, due to the artifact perk Overload Breach Loaded Grenade Launcher. Man, that's a mouthful. Allothinum still feels lacking. It doesn't pack a heavy enough punch. Plus, the slow reload speed and small blast radius leave too much room for error against roaming champions. Harder content, especially when you're 30 or so light levels down from the enemies, demands that you kill quickly and keep moving. 2 or 3 stray shots and you're done for. Now, Ager's Scepter has been thrown into the ring too. This Stasis trace rifle reads as follows. Final blows with this weapon generate a slow burst around the defeated target. Even though the Catalyst has a really interesting alternate firing method, it's not worth draining your super for. Glacial Quake's damage, field control, and ad clear are just too good to improve your primary weapon's damage and freezing status application. That being said, the consistent damage and slowing bursts on kills push this weapon into the front runner for the kinetic slot. Unfortunately, my tonics have been bugged for a couple of weeks now, and I can't craft anymore. Otherwise, I would have tested the tonic that boosts your stasis weapons that use primary ammo. It might change my opinion on which weapon to take for the kinetic slot, but for now, if you're just focused on onslaught, I recommend that you take the following loadout: Ager's Scepter, Aikilos SG, and Dimensional Hypotrochoid. Aikilos has a decent amount of good PvE roles to take. It's all about your personal playstyle, but for me, I'd go with Subsistence or Pugilist in the first slot. Then Incandescent or Swashbuckler in the second slot. Also, make sure to always take the Anti-Barrier Shotgun perk from the seasonal artifact. Then for the power slot, Dimensional Hypotrochoid is so fun to use and it's amazing at ad clear. The compressed waveframe stasis grenade launcher is farmable on Neptune. I recommend you go for Unrelenting for the healing and One for All for the 30% damage boost. Healing is a little sparse in this Icefall Mantle build, so any healing or overshields we can get from our weapons are a huge plus. I'll get into some alternative weapon loadouts in the next section, but this one here creates ice lances with ease, stuns barrier champions, packs a punch up close thanks to Aikilos' quick firing rate, and the stasis wave ad clear from Hypotrochoid is mwah. Jumping over to the Prismatic subclass, and yes, I do think Prismatic is the way to go. Access to Transcendence and therefore a strong burst gameplay loop is too powerful to pass up. If you try taking on Master Law sectors, you'll realize that the sheer amount of champions makes it near impossible to just defeat them with weapons alone. It takes too long and you're likely to die from shots from surrounding adds. Or even worse, you won't be able to kill them quickly enough in their stun state and they'll regen all their health. Transcendence, and to a lesser extent, Radiance, helps with all of that. Obviously, we're taking Glacial Quake for our super. As I mentioned earlier, your class ability choice here doesn't matter because the Stasis Energy Burst from Icefall Mantle has a set cooldown of 43 seconds. Shield Throw is a strong ability here because it offers an overshield per enemy hit. Glacial Grenade is the best choice here since it creates stasis crystals and can stun unstoppable champions. Suppression Grenade is a strong second choice, but only if you take Facet of Dominance. However, I think there are stronger facets for this build specifically. Plus, our Prismatic Grenade already jolts, so for me, Glacial Grenade is the way to go. Diamond Lance is our first aspect. Since we take 2 stasis weapons, we'll be making a lot of Ice Lances on enemy kills. Every time we make an Ice Lance, we have the option to throw it to stun enemies, or slam it down and freeze enemies within a small area. If you're not at max stacks of Frost Armor, you'll want to slam this down since you receive 2 stacks of Frost Armor and a bit of healing. Consecration is our second aspect. I know, it feels like a betrayal to throw this ability into the build, but hear me out first before you click off or swipe off the video. We don't really need to use Consecration outside of Transcendence. Shield Throw is more than capable of providing an overshield and granting Radiant through the right facet. But Shield Throw is actually pretty easy to miss. Plus, Consecration can stun unstoppable champions with its ignition properties. And as I alluded to a second ago, Transcendence becomes 3 times better with Consecration. Cycling between this Flaming Slam and our Jolting Grenade is exactly the power surge we need to take on groups of champions. I don't know if you've played Master Law sectors recently, but it feels like Bungie threw in more champions than ever before. Trying to complete some of these encounters with Shield Throw made me want to slam my keyboard on my desk. Icefall Mantle is not a Consecration spam build, but we take it because it makes us much more powerful in solo content. Again, this is something that other content creators fail to bring up. Now let's quickly cover the facets that tie the whole build together. Facet of Protection for the increased damage resistance. Facet of Hope for the ability regeneration, since we'll have Overshield and Frost Armor up the majority of the time. Facet of Awakening to generate the Stasis Shards for melee energy, and the Void Breaches for grenade energy, plus weakening thanks to an artifact perk I'll talk about in a minute. Facet of Devotion generates additional light transcendence energy when we get stasis kills. Facet of Ruin is a damage boost to all of our stasis crystal shatters and to our consecration slams. Lastly, Facet of Dawn grants Radiant, which gives us a 10% damage boost and will stun barrier champions, like I mentioned a moment ago. Let's go over the seasonal artifact perks. Our options may change later as more perks are added throughout Revenant, but for now, in Column 1, Anti-Barrier Shotgun is the only option that matters for us. We grab one with Frost and Rapid Impacts from Column 2. The increased reload speed to stasis weapons as well as grenade launchers are too good to pass up. In Column 3, we go Wind Chill and Power from Pain. Wind Chill lets us stack up Frost Armor by simply hitting precision shots. I'll get back to Power from Pain in a minute. Okay, from Column 4, we take Armor of Aramis for the Freezing Burst on low health, Hail the Storm for extra damage and slows on our stasis crystals, and then Concussive Reload to weaken champions and bosses. In the last column, we grab Supernova for the ability to create large weakening pulses after picking up a Void Breach. This synergizes quite nicely with Power from Pain to empower us with Devour after killing multiple weakened enemies. Finally, we take the MVP of this season's artifact, Served Cold. Now, both Stasis Shards and Void Breaches grant class ability and melee energy. You couldn't ask for a better perk for Icefall Mantle. This build thrives on adaptability, so a few changes to exotics or mods can completely shift your strategy. Here are just a few alternative weapon loadouts I'd recommend. First off, take Choir of One. I know you might be tired of this weapon because we've all been using it since its release last episode, but the damage, ammo economy, and alternate firing method are just too good to pass up. This will be a consistent way of creating Void Breaches for ability energy and weakening enemies. If you know you'll be up against a lot of unstoppable champions, you'll want to take Arvindil FR6, which is a fusion rifle, with Chill Clip. Liturgy with Chill Clip is also okay, but loses out versus other options because it takes multiple reloads to stun an unstoppable champion with this weapon. VS Chill Inhibitor with Demolitionist and Bait and Switch is my go-to for stasis grenade launchers. Hypotrochoid is more enjoyable and satisfying to use, plus it's fun to say Hypotrochoid, but it's extremely frustrating when your enemies are flying or are on uneven ground. Chill Inhibitor is much more reliable and packs a punch. I know some would say to take Cascade over Demolitionist for the faster rate of fire, but that's not necessary since it has a rapid fire frame with faster reload speeds when the magazine empties, plus we have rapid impacts from the seasonal artifact. Live Fire is another strong weapon. It is great for picking off weaker enemies at a distance, generating stasis crystals, and self-buffing with Frost Armor. It's exceptionally strong if you have the perks Rhyme Eater and Headstone. Lost Signal and VS Velocity Baton are great versus Overload champions due to the Overload perk from the artifact. One shot with either of these area denial grenade launchers will stun Overload champions and allow you to stun loop so that you can preserve heavy ammo if need be. If all else fails, or if you don't feel like farming for the new Stasis rapid fire grenade launcher, Ed's Transit with Envious Assassin and Bait and Switch is always amazing. What's even crazier is that this build is only going to get stronger in the coming months. There are multiple weapons coming out during the Festival of the Lost and Dawning 2024 events, so if you don't want spoilers, I recommend you skip this section. Alright, for the rest of you, first we have Rake Angle. This will be the first ever legendary Stasis Glaive, and it's the first ever Glaive for the kinetic slot. It has extremely good perk rolls. Impulse Amplifier and Chill Clip are what I'm going to aim for. This glaive will instantly stun overloads and refill its ammo thanks to the Stunning Recovery origin trait, and it'll be farmable from Nightfalls this season. Next, there's Tanasha's Mastery, the first ever Stasis rocket-assisted frame sidearm. Even though it's a PvP weapon from the Iron Banner, it has very strong PvE perk rolls. I'm probably going to farm for one with Air Trigger for the increased ammo reserves, and either Chill Clip or Desperate Measures. If you take Chill Clip, it will stun Overload champions in just 2 shots. Third, we have Archon's Thunder. This heavy impact frame light machine gun has been reworked from Solar to Stasis. Similar to Tanasha's Mastery, even though it's a PvP weapon from Iron Banner, it has very strong PvE perks. Plus, the combination of Rhyme Stealer plus Headstone is top tier for our Icefall Stasis build. Lastly, there's Heretic's Fervor, a Stasis aggressive frame rocket launcher. This weapon is attainable from Revenant seasonal activities, mainly Onslaught. It has great perks for damage and magazine size increase as well as refill. Field Prep, Auto-Loading Holster, Bipod, and Explosive Light will be the perks to aim for. I think the Icefall Mantle builds will evolve with additional seasonal perks being released throughout Revenant, and with new weapons from the upcoming events. As the title suggests, this Stasis build is crushing the old Consecration Titan meta, but it hasn't completely killed it off yet. I think we're 1 or 2 small adjustments away from Stasis and Void being legitimate competitors against Consecration spam. In fact, my next build idea will be on a reworked exotic armor piece made for Void sustainability and damage. If you made it this far, thank you so much for spending your time here with me. I just quickly want to mention how much I appreciate everyone that's been viewing my videos and subscribing recently. Thanks to you all, I've decided to implement a membership program with exclusive shoutouts, polls, tutorials, and guides. If you're interested, please check out the membership button for more information. That's all for today. Thank you all once again and have a great weekend.